Welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. I'm your host, Christine Devlin Eck. Here at the Center for Sacred Window Studies, we explore and expand on conscious postpartum care. We navigate the overlap of caring for others and caring for ourselves. We honor the transitions, not only in giving birth, but in being alive. Welcome to the conversation.
And I will never be the same again.
Hi, welcome everyone. My name's Roshni. I'm the student advisor and work study advisor for Sacred Window Studies. So you may have heard some of my episodes I've done with our students here. It's always a pleasure for me to just interview and highlight and share the beautiful work our students are doing. And our guest today is Naomi Newlan. Naomi, I'm so excited to talk to you. You're just a ray of light every time we speak, and I leave so inspired by your energy. It's so infectious. So, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm great. I've just returned home from India.
I know that sounded so incredible. So, you live in Ibiza, right? Not very far from where I am.
Yeah, I do at the moment. And I have my children and my pets, and we live here in Ibiza. Yeah.
I see them walking around you.
Already the pets have had to come in, they all have to be part of anything which is happening online.
Yeah. Yeah, they're part of your crew.
Yeah.
Well, I want to start with I'm a big believer in, kind of like giving voice and letting you describe how you do your work. What is it? Aside from, yes, like I know you are a postpartum caregiver, you work within the field of wellness and women's health and energy medicine, but I want you to describe your work and what you do and how you arrived here.
Okay. Oh, well, I arrived here from my whole life. Along the way. And I was born into a yoga lineage. I then refound yoga in my 30s, and I've had a practice for the last over 20 years. And Ayurveda came along. When I wanted to become a yoga teacher, first thing I wanted to do was know how to touch people's bodies. I had this thing like, how does the body work? How do I touch the body? So I went off to become a massage therapist whilst also practicing yoga. And then that branched straight away really into Ayurvedic massage. And as I was massaging, I was remembering that I always massaged as a child. And I love hands-on. So actually, I then didn't become a yoga teacher for 20 years. I had my practice. I went into massage. That was my big love. But I've always married the two. So I've always been practicing and massaging. And you know what it's like, doors open along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Countries, and each country wherever I go to live, so I lived in California before here, is I always want to know what's the indigenous healing modality. Like wherever I go, I always go to learn about the healing which comes from that land and those people. So wherever I've gone, I've always gone and learned and taken that with me. So everything's like a weaving of healings that I've learned, or learning how to live with the wisdom of the plants and the people wherever I go. Yeah. But Ayurveda and yoga are right there in there. They're inside me, vibrating all the time. And I think of Ayurveda as being very like, it's alive, it's a wisdom which is always here and connecting us to nature and love and beauty, no matter where we are.
Yeah, I love that feeling that you can always access it, right? It's a framework that serves you in different parts of your life, different stages of life. And tell me why, or not why, but how did you get, passionate about supporting new mothers? And how do you connect, yeah, like everything you've learned now, like how does that channel into the work you're doing?
So I would say that when I look back at how I was postpartum with my first child, I had no wisdom at all. I had no understanding at all about how vital this postpartum window is. Yet I think I'd heard about different cultures I'd known. I just thinking now, seeing perhaps different culture people that I knew in London having a different postpartum window, but I myself had no idea at all what to do postpartum. And I literally thought I just literally had to jump back. I had this idea all the time of, oh, I need to jump back to the old me. So constantly pushing. I'd also had a traumatic delivery of my first child. So I didn't know that actually I was also super sensitive, was actually didn't have any practices on understanding what to do postpartum. So I was quite hard on myself, and me and my son, it was it was tricky, and the sleep was tricky, and I didn't know anything about what was happening with the elements to me, and why I couldn't sleep, and why I couldn't, all of these things, and then I look back and I think, yeah, and then what happened with my second child. The two nanas came to help me for 1 week, and I was in the middle of a building site. We had a house with no kitchen, no anything, all the building work.
Wow. A true test.
Yeah, I was living upstairs with my son, 3.5, and my new baby. And the two mums came to help me for 1 week. And I felt something in that week, which was like, I feel safe. I feel looked after. And that was just 7 days of that. And that feeling was like, that feels really different. I want to be able to offer that to other people. And then so that kind of always stayed with me. And then because I was already a pre and a postnatal massage therapist, so I did Ayurvedic massage pre, and then would go and see the mamas in the house postnatal. There's this moment when you walk in the house, which is there's like nothing like it. It's such an honor to be there. For me, it just feels like you're almost in the presence of something really, really, really magnificent.
Yeah, it's a portal. Yeah.
It's a portal, and I feel like you're connected to the divine and this soul which has come through. And I've always had that. So even before I was training in postpartum, there was that moment where I was like, it's just an honor and a blessing to be here. And I want to serve this beautiful mama and her baby. So that's always been with me. And then I didn't know until I got to LA, and this is how I found the Sacred Windows work. I didn't know that there was an Ayurvedic protocol, you see, for that's 42 days. So when I found that, I was like, oh, I need to learn, and I need to qualify so I can help people, because I think this is just such a vital window, and it just isn't part of the culture that I grew up in, the society.
Yeah.
The culture I was in was, can you get back into your skinny jeans? Can you get the baby into the buggy, and can you get out straight away and start being, seeing people and drinking your coffees? And I mean, I'm saying that totally, but that's how I was. I was like, oh, I've got to try and get back into doing that stuff, having no idea that actually I needed to really have this quiet time.
I love that. I can just feel so reassured and relaxed, the way you're talking about, the cultural values of, right? Like, go back to, sipping wine and your lattes and all this socializing and back to work, and just the mental and physical energy that you have to like drain yourself into, and like what is left for you and for the baby, right? Very little.
Yeah, and not realizing that all that outward energy is not needed at all. I mean, it wasn't that I wasn't wandering around, at home breastfeeding stuff, but I was constantly feeling like I needed to go outward. This is our time, maybe our only time, to go really inward and to savor that, because it's what's happening on a cellular level. So now I know that there's so much to learn here, and it's such a rich space. I just feel like I just always feel really humbled to be in that space with another mum, another baby.
Can we talk about that inward space? Because I can picture as this like sort of very quiet, deep, profound cocoon, where there's so much transformation. obviously you are sustaining and, you're in the early days of feeding your baby, like learning their language, like you are morphing into this being. You're separate, but you're also one entity. But then also all the changes, like you are talking about, like this is the birth of the new parent, a new mother, all of that, like how that is so transformational that we don't even think about, right? We're just thinking, okay, diapers, milk, focusing on the very tangible. But can you talk about the kind of the energetics, the spiritual transformation that awaits like a new parent after birth?
I think also, before transformation, there's a pause. That happens in, we go into a space which is a pause, and then rebirth comes. And I think that postpartum window is the pause, actually. It's the space of just being before we transform. I would say that I had no idea. I mean, there's so much conscious parenting and birth preparation nowadays, but I didn't feel like I had that. I didn't even realize I was going into anything, a new me. I had this idea, as I said, of this kind of backward gazing. So I think that before we even know that we're transforming into something new, there is this sacred pause, which is that sacred window. Sorry, the dog's sorry. All right. Yeah. So I feel like there's a moment in time where everything is a pause before we're birthed into something new in transformation. And I think that's what that is. And it's being able to be present and kind of surrendering into that moment, isn't it? Which makes us into the new mother, new being with the baby.
Yeah. No, thank you for saying that. I feel like, yeah, maybe we are so ready to like jump into new stages that we may miss the pause, the moment of reflection.
Yeah.
So I love that description of the sacred window, the postpartum as the pause before the period of transformation. And I wonder, do you think in those moments of pause, is there, because I feel like birth and life is it's such a powerful energy where you're swept up, in it. And a lot of times what I see is a struggle of like trying to come to terms with the experience. It can be wonderful, but it's also deeply, you know, like destabilizing because you're being transformed into something you don't even know who you'll be. And I feel like there's not a lot of time for imagining what that will look like or preparing for it. Like we just have to answer the call, meet the moment, right? So, do you have some framework, some guidelines that could be useful for new parents as they're contemplating, when you are in the pause, what should we be thinking about? Like, how do we move through each transitional period with some sense of, not necessarily, okay, I've planned out everything, but also I
That doesn't.
know who I am, that feeling.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be an element of trust, and you're going to meet different aspects of yourself. I think that's one of the big parts, isn't it? Is that we are made up of many, many aspects, and we meet all the many aspects of ourselves. So in that's becoming, I would say, very loving to yourself of whatever comes up. Because it's in meeting these aspects of ourselves. Maybe you've been up all night breastfeeding, and you're exhausted, and you're going beyond, you're meeting these, that you're going beyond, maybe for some people, things they've never done before, or never experienced before. There needs to be this, I feel, this kind of unconditional love for yourself and meeting yourself where you are each day. And each day changes, and nothing is permanent. I mean, we have to know that. Nothing is permanent at the beginning, is it? It keeps changing, keeps changing. So I would say it's like being very lovingly kind and accepting of yourself, and always know that you're doing your best that day. And as you see, because I think that as we are present, are loving, and meet these aspects of ourselves, that's how we start to become the new person. Does that make sense? I don't know about
Yeah, you're some of all of those parts, and
we all have very different babies also, and we will all experience things slightly different, won't we? But I feel like you meet these aspects of yourself that you may not have met before.
Yeah.
And I would say that it's about, the thing is, at the beginning, it is just about you and your baby and meeting the needs of the baby and doing the best to do that for yourself as well, and that's changing all the time. So I would say it's about having this loving compassion. Please stop. Loving compassion for yourself and where you are each day. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. I was just thinking that is very hard to do.
I think so, but I think if we do have that kind of that mantra, I'm doing the best I can today.
Yeah.
And tomorrow is going to change. When I met her, I gave a massage to a new mum. I think she was baby was 6 days old, and she was trying to have a structure. And I was remembering that, how can you have a structure right now?
No.
You're in the house, you know where the kitchen is, you know where the bed is, but you don't know what's going to happen. And when she remembered that actually everything is impermanent and that's okay, and surrendering to that, of course, there's sometimes, if she was able to breastfeed okay, sometimes there's different things which come up, which are challenges. But for her, when she was able to surrender and know that there's going to be change, at least for the first 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, she felt some freedom and space in that.
Yeah.
It's hard on herself.
Yeah. I see a lot of like what you're saying is this belief of trusting in yourself, and that you can generate your own, wisdom and your sense of framework. Like, you don't have to look outwards. And I feel like that's so comforting, especially as new parents, because you are looking outside of you for source of support or comfort. But it's also very refreshing and grounding to know, the sources within you.
Yeah.
Especially because you're so connected to this other brand new human being. So you are drawing from yourself. Can you talk a little bit about, this idea of, like connecting to our own source, and where, like physically, where we can access that from, if that makes sense?
Yeah. And well, this is a lot of the work that I do anyway. Never, outside of postpartum. This is the work that I do, which is the connecting. When we have a practice of connecting deeply to our wisdom, to our source of energy, that through the womb awakening work I do, through the Kundalini yoga work I do, it's always being able to be self-sufficient energetically like that. And I guess if you have that experience and that practice, that's something that you can take with you into postpartum as well. Shall I talk more about that?
Yeah. Let's go into that. And people are at different levels of understanding of what that means. Like, how do you access that? What does it mean to connect to your womb energy? So let's start with the foundation of like how you would describe it, and then we can go deeper into, are there practices that we can access, how to do it safely, what may come up that, might be of surprise to us, and like finding some support around that.
So if we start with the understanding then that the womb space, so we're talking about the womb space, we don't necessarily have to even be talking about the actual reproductive organs, but the womb space is our energetic space and the home to where we can really meet our divine feminine essence. And that this space is home to our wisdom, we can really source a very special energy from this space. It's like the elixir of life. And when we tap into this energy, and it's different for everyone, but when you feel it, because I see this when I'm teaching it, there's this special vibration. And once you tap into that, you really have that for life, this unique kind of energy. It's a connection, it's a portal, it's a connection to transformation. And we also can use this portal into understanding. We can get insights. Sometimes people get insights and downloads about things which have happened way before our time, collectively. So it's an amazing portal into your infinite wisdom. So that, and then understanding also that anything you've experienced in your life, she has experienced. So you can almost imagine her as her own entity. She's experienced that and may have a slightly different take on it, which can be very, very refreshing, because sometimes our mind remembers things from the past and it's attached onto certain ways it wants to remember. But when we get into practice, she can often shed a completely different light. And I've actually been guided through my hardest times. I'm very lucky because I found these practices when I did, guided through my hardest times with simplicity, and true guidance, because it's coming from your inner well of your wisdom. It's like your body and your feminine essence. And that's what we're tapping into with these practices, but they're activations rather than meditations. So it's a more of an active guidance, and we set an intention and then we work. We're coming down the body into the womb space. And there's many, many, many different practices. They're very ancient techniques, which at one time it was said that all women had access to. And over the history of time, we've been disconnected. And so we'll find that, and that's also why I was so drawn to this, because I had no connection to, my womb space as an energetic center. I'd heard about the hara, which is, traditions talk about the hara and the pooling and the sourcing of the energy, but I'd never really understand it as my divine feminine energy center. So that's why I went on to train and study. And it can be very sorry, I was going to say, it can be very gentle, this, and you can go very, very deep.
That's what I was going to ask. It's you're reminding me of, reading with Women Who Run with the Wolves, that book, all about tapping into that kind of feminine energy, right? And I think sometimes it can feel like, for people, I don't want to go there because I don't know what and who lives there. And opening that up, during when I have to go to work or I have to take care of a family is not safe. So I'm interested in starting with, what are the subtle forms of, connection, but also what are the subtle forms of energy that we can access too? Maybe we don't have to do a whole, deep transformative healing from deep kind of intergenerational wounds, because I can totally imagine that is a part of that, right? That we are also severed from that connection. As you were describing, I could just imagine, my grandmother and my mom wouldn't describe it this way, but I think a lot of what they are saying, what they were saying, is that sadness and that grief of being disconnected from their, radical, sacred, feminine energy. And so often they've had to just make do with what was, what they could express. So this is a multi-part question. This is what happens. So let's start with the subtle energetics.
Well, I was going to say that I did used to say to people, when you open Pandora's box, you don't know what you're going to get. But now, what I think? I think that you receive what you are able to handle at that time, because it's your body.
Yeah. You are consenting to what you want to receive, right? And what capacity you have.
Yeah. And what you can handle and take on right now. you've got a busy family, but I will say that when we do these practices, I always ask yourself, give yourself a buffer, give yourself, like the activations in themselves take about 20 minutes. They're not long, but give yourself at least the hour to be able to drink tea, journal, and just sit with what's come up. And I know traditionally you see this would always be done in community. So all the women have got you're all being held.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be. I mean, so I can share that I've just co-run a program where my friend and I ran a program for 21 days. And part of the program was a yogic Ayurvedic program. And part of it was a sharing circle using with womb work. And it was so beautiful, which came, there was nothing too difficult for anybody which came. So it was, people were having incredible feelings of what it feels like to tap into that kind of energetic.
Yeah.
So that wasn't scary. They were actually so happy to feel that. It depends, I think, on what you're working on yourself.
Yeah. I think it is comforting and reassuring to know that the womb energy or activating it is not all about loss and darkness and fear, that it is a source of regenerative and creative energy, right? So
and wonder and mystical, like adding magic also to your life,
I love that. Yeah. So do you think you can kind of tap into an intention? Like maybe you are in a place of kind of darkness. You may not, maybe it's not the time to open up or like interrogate the darkness, but maybe can you do practices to bring in light and warmth and magic, like you said, intentionally?
Good question. The thing is, it takes a bit of time to practice, so you have to get to feel that. But I believe, yeah, I think so. Because of course, as I said to you before, it was my hardest part of my life, and I was totally guided. But then I'd had the practice before. But it's really trusting. You get into this practice where you're dropping. We're always going down, so we're going down into the womb portal. So we're moving away from the mind. The busy. This is how it is. This is how, we're dropping down and trusting the process, and when somebody like me is holding that space, it is a safe space. We've kind of created this space, which is safe for that person to explore. And then once they feel it, they practice it for themselves. I actually think it is possible to tap in. You're not creating anything, you're just tapping into that essence, that spark, which is uniquely yours. And this feminine energy that very often we're not familiar with. I think we can tap into that at any point. So even at your darkness, I think the only thing is, I would say, if you're having a dark time, you have to be willing to try something new and try it a few times and have a teacher, someone to talk to, like, so that.
Yeah.
But we all hold this energy. It's just uniquely different, it's a unique vibration for each of us, but it's all there.
Yeah. I can see maybe people are wondering, well, what is this activation or how is it done? So can you just describe a little bit about if someone were to come, to your workshop that we're doing very soon, what is the kind of framework, like if you can describe it sort of like physically, how like we would do this? Is it a series of meditations or, guided channeling? So if you can just describe the process itself.
Yeah. So we're using a specific type of breath, first of all, and we're using light, which is coming through the breath. So very often even that intention and invitation starts to conjure up. You use the breath and these lights through the body, and that's how you kind of start to wake up on a kind of cellular level. And there's the intention, like you said. So we always start with an intention, like it's my sacred intention today to awaken my womb space. Say, That's one. And then you're just listening to my voice as I'm guiding and surrendering to what's coming through. That's how we do it. So you'll always be listening to me. We always set an intention and we always use the same breath.
Mm.
Yeah. And at the beginning, just so you know, I always start. So if I was to do a long course, I always take the first 3 weeks is just familiarizing yourself with this same practice, because it's a practice.
Yeah. Yeah, and that it makes sense, the idea of breath and light,
Yeah.
because those layers are so hard to reach. And if you think about it energetically and elementally, light and air can go where, even our intentions may not be able to go, right? It's
Yeah.
so subtle and fine.
And breath.
Um, and is there a practice that you recommend people can do just every day to kind of connect deeper to this energy, to this place of
What I would say,
connection?
yeah, once you've done the practice with me, then you'll feel that and you can do it every day. But I would say up until before having the actual practice, even just the act of completely softening and surrendering, rather than an outward focus, even allow your body to soften back wherever you're sitting and just soften, soften, soften. That soft, reclining inward energy is the feminine energy. So you can start by just cultivating that, by even wherever you are, get cozy on your sofa, feel that the sofa is completely holding you, and allow yourself to have the energy come inward and soft, and just watching the breath and just being in that space is the beginning of cultivating the feminine energy. Whereas if we think of the masculine energy as quite structured, it's orderly and it's outward focused. And we all have that. Men and women have the feminine and the masculine energy. But when we're cultivating this feminine, we're slowing right down. We come from such a fast culture, which is result orientated and outward focus facing, that in itself is healing. And the other thing a woman can do is put one hand on her heart, one hand on her belly, soften into the sofa, and imagine you're reclining backwards, you're surrendering, and just be present to that. And that's the beginning of cultivating this divine energy.
Mm. And is this like a central part of, the postpartum period as well, you think? Like after birth, would you recommend people do this or?
I wouldn't do any activations after birth. I'd be allowing that soft space, but definitely that surrendering, inward facing, being soft and slowing right down. I'd be
Mm.
recommending that. I wouldn't do any activations for womb work until,
Mhm.
no, that's just intuitively. We don't do
Yeah.
womb activations if anyone's pregnant, by the way. Okay, because that is changing energetics in the womb space. So we don't do that. If you're on your moon cycle, that's fine, but not when you have a baby. So I would suggest postpartum, I wouldn't do any activations. This is my intuition, just saying I
Hmm.
don't have anything
Yeah.
3 months. That's just how I feel. But I would definitely be you'll naturally be in that feminine energy anyway, won't you?
Yeah.
Being slow and inward facing, but maybe just really harnessing that and being present to that. Um, yeah, that's what I think.
Mm. I know that you work a lot with people who've had, challenging births and kind of how, that can create, different kinds of energy in the womb space. So, without going into too much detail of because there's so many different kinds of births, I just
Yeah.
wanted to touch a little bit about like what kind of work, you know, um you've done with people who've had, challenging births more so to kind of help people to think about, what resources they are, what questions they should be asking to even see, if they're ready for this kind of work. And again, some very gentle, simple questions they can ask themselves you know, um, to go deeper into this process.
Yes, it's feeling when they're ready. I mean, I probably wouldn't suggest, I don't, again, I'm talking intuitively, but I would say let it be 12 months probably before you go there anyway, because you're working with the being present for the baby and so on.
Yeah.
But one of the things I just want to say when you were saying that, which came up when I ran the program I ran was a 6-week program. It was really what we were doing was waking up the womb and letting her tell her story. So it's very interesting the way we did it. We start by telling our stories. We've all got a birth story. We all listen. That's very healing, just having a woman listen to you, right? And then we activate the womb space, and then using different modes of creativity. People were writing or painting or drawing and moving and making sounds. We let the womb, we wake her up and then listen to what she has to say and let her heal. You see, she self-heals. She has the transmutational power. So she can be healed in a space where she's being listened to and expressing herself. And what always came up for everybody in that group was that they lost their voice that day. There is a big link between throat chakra, sacral chakra, or the womb and the throat. And in fact, even the anatomical
Yeah, it's like a triangle, no?
Yeah. So what happened, and that's what was really amazing actually, is in this 6-week program, is that women started to gain their voice back because they were letting the womb speak. And then this had a huge effect in their present day life. And some people were promoted at work, like amazing things happened in their actual daily life because they were healing, and you only heal in the present moment. But it was a lot to do with losing the voice and not being seen and not being heard. So that seemed to be the major thing, which was uniting for everyone, even though everyone had a completely different story, and so actually it wasn't even like a very it wasn't even like a really specific program. What we did was just wake her up and let her express a lot through creativity, movement, sound. And it was fascinating what happened. So what I would say is the women who were at my in my group, they were actually between their children, a lot of them were 8 years plus, because then they had the time to go back. And a lot of people don't want to look at it because it's been too hard,
Yeah.
Same as me, you can't do it straight away because you're still, you're still in your early years of becoming a mama and so on, I think. So there needs probably to be a little bit of distance, but it's very, very gentle work. That's something I want to say. It's not like, because some people were like, oh, I don't want to go there. That was just horrendous or whatever, if it was
Yeah,
hard.
because I can totally see people going, nope, don't want
Yeah.
to touch that. But
What was
yeah.
interesting to me was when I brought, so, I was guided in a dream to do this work.
Wow.
I was advised, because I also had something, I had a very difficult first labor. But when I was talking to people, do you know that like at least 50% of the women I spoke to have all had experienced that, but they didn't want to talk about it. And they thought they weren't allowed to because there's a saying which is baby's fine.
Yeah.
You're fine. And you believe it. I was told that. And I was like, yeah, I'm so lucky. And on top of that, I'm so lucky that my baby can breastfeed. So I had all these things. I'm so
Right.
lucky. And I'm just going to be really lucky. But what happens, the nervous systems had experienced I know we might not want a word, don't want to use trauma or overwhelm, nervous system. Well, that vibrates still inside me,
Yeah.
right? So we need to go back. I mean, I say we need to, but in going back to do this soft, gentle, creative work, and the nervous system gets a chance also to heal.
Yeah, I almost see it as like, it's the nervous system like sort of coiled in a way, and it's maybe like holding in that spot, and then with the breath, the light, the creativity, and just the invitation, it's slowly unwinding, and there's a suppleness and, sort of like waves, right? Like washing over, and it can just soften. And again, the idea of self-healing, and it does it on its own without you having to, kind of go in and like, have to break down any kind of
Yeah.
scarring or tissue. Nothing. It's just, it's so, it feels so intuitive and soft.
Yeah. 100%. And one thing I want to say is by the end of the program, when we all talked about our stories again, they changed in perspective.
How did it change?
Some people had compassion for the hospital staff. There's just different things happened. Some people had, it wasn't as raw. It wasn't as raw, and it hadn't been, like at the beginning, you're, like you said, you were all tight, and we're telling this, and it's, some people have had awful experiences. And by the end, there was a completely different energy around them when they're talking, and an acceptance and a love. And it felt like an expansion of love, and all the women had also really connected. It's always beautiful, But definitely there's this, there's a lot of healing to be had in being listened to, being able to express no matter what comes out, Yeah, it was amazing. And and trusting the process, that the womb heals herself. It's hard to explain, but I see it. She has this ability to do it. It's transmutational energy. Yeah.
Thank you, Naomi. You're so wise. I am so happy for people to have you as a resource guiding, as you guide them through these really transformational, beautiful and also very difficult moments. That what a gift to have this wisdom and knowledge, and your voice is also just so soothing, so I can imagine. It's like, yes, I will lie down and do whatever you say. um, so can you tell us a little bit about just all the events you're doing with Sacred Window Studies? We have so many, so
I know. So Kunda dance, I'm a Kundalini yoga teacher and a yoga teacher, and Kunda dance is a fusion of this. So it's Kundalini yoga, standing up, balanced with a little bit of Tai Chi and Qigong, and it's super fun. It's so accessible to everybody, and it's powerful, and it's always creating the same, like being able to create this space so that you can tap into your inner well of wisdom and radiance and joy. And I teach this, so I've already done a class, but we're going to do some more with Sacred Windows. And I teach this online, and I teach this in person as well.
Beautiful. Yeah. And then we also have your, womb connection workshops as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I believe we're definitely doing 2.
We're definitely doing 2 on the 20th and the 27th. That's right.
So really welcoming and inviting anyone who wants to feel this work, tap into their amazing elixir of life, their energy and wisdom. Welcoming people in, and just to be open and maybe inquisitive. And we'll be doing this at, let's get our times right now. Can you remind me?
1 p.m. EST. Yeah.
1 p.m. EST. Yeah. 1 p.m. EST on the 20th and the 27th. And the reason I've done it as a series is because it's for you to have a first taste and then come back and build on it. Or if you can't make the first one, it's fine. Come and do the other one. We will hand that out as a recording as well, won't we? So that people will have that they can use forever. And I will be on tap for those 2 weeks for anybody who wants to reach out if anything comes up, so they need a bit of support.
Yeah. And it'll be super gentle, warm, and nourishing space, right?
Yeah, it's going to be, it's just literally tapping into the beginning of what what it feels like to tap into this very special energy, this frequency, the vibration, which is actually inside us all the time. And it's not, it's going to be super gentle, but the body, she will show you what she wants to show you.
Yeah.
And but it's the intention is it's very, very gentle, and it's a beginner's taste. Yeah.
Oh, can't wait. Can't wait. Sounds so good. Well, how can people work with you, outside of these? Like, how can people find you? I know that you have, right, like different workshops and trainings. So tell us a little bit about, where people can find
Find
you.
me on Instagram at White Sage Healing. My dear friend Kate and I have created a 21-day program we called Nourish to Flourish, which is aimed at women from peri to postmenopause, weaving in different yogas, Ayurveda, womb awakening, sharing, and we've got an ebook and a very gentle Ayurvedic cleanse there. And we're actually working to make that an online program that people can buy and they can work through at their own pace. So that is coming out in April. And other than that, you can find me teaching. I'm either teaching on the island or teaching online. But everything at the moment is going through White Sage Healing, the Instagram.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
This
you.
was so beautiful. I can't believe it's an hour already.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. Thanks for sharing. You're so generous with everyone and your energies. So we will see you in workshops, classes, and I hope people, found this to be a supportive and eye-opening conversation. It has been for me. I love what you said about, trusting, surrendering, softening, and that can be its expansion. Like this work doesn't have to be painful and hard. It can be so simple and easeful. So thank you for that.
Thank
And
you very much. Thanks for having me, and thank you for Sacred Windows, your amazing teaching and trainings.
thank you, everyone. Happy listening.
Shanti, Shanti.
The Sacred Window podcast is brought to you by the Center for Sacred Window Studies. You can visit us to find out more about our online training and mentoring programs, plus resources and products for and about the sacred postpartum window at www.sacredwindowstudies.com. And our music is written and performed by Sarah Emmett. You can hear more of Sarah's music by visiting www.sarahemmett.bandcamp.com.